right? So the main goal of this conversation today is really for us to see what is the role of design system in how we ship and build products, right? And by so doing, it will help you to realize how can you utilize design systems whenever you're working in a team. How do you choose what design system to work with, right? How do you negotiate with your stakeholders? And when I say stakeholders, I mean maybe your team members, the engineers, your CEO, your product manager. How do you negotiate what kind of design system to integrate into your product? And to be able to do those things effectively, you need to really understand, where exactly does design system come into play when you're building a product, right? At what stage do you really, introduce design system? How do you choose the right design system? There are a lot of things that goes into that process. Why we're not able to cover all of these things today, right? What I would try to do is to build some foundations for us to be able to get a good concept of what design systems are, and most especially with focus on what the shared CNUI design system is. It's possible that some of us must have seen a lot of posts on LinkedIn of recent. You see a lot of products, good designs, and the designer or the engineer says they use chassis and UI and so on and so forth. And you'll be wondering what exactly is so special about chassis, right? And how do I get started? Right. That's why we are here. So my first question, or my first concern that I would like to address in my own way of understanding, is what a design system is not, right? So if you're a designer in the house here, you know about UI kits, you know about style guides, you know about Figma, right? But design system is not really synonymous to any of these three things. When we say design system, we are not really talking about a UI kit in Figma, right? And when we say style guide, we're not talking about design system, right? Style guide and design system are two things. So, and whenever we talk about design system, for designers, most especially, the first thing that comes to mind is we think about Figma, right? But the thing about design system is that you can build design system in any platform, right? Because it extends beyond just UI kits, like I said earlier. And the best you could actually do on Figma is to create UI kits, but you can't really build a comprehensive design system just right on Figma. So Figma is just part of the tool set that you use to build out a design system. So if design system is not a UI kit and it's not a style guide, what then is a design system? So a good way to understand it is this: is a collection of things, right? It's not one thing. It's a collection of things. So it's a collection of UI kits. It's a collection of style guide, and it's also a collection of principles and guidelines, documentations. So it's a collection of uh, code components, UI components. So when we are talking about design system, if you look at a button in Figma, we should also be looking at the button in a code format, right? And we should also be looking at how the button is used, where the button is used. So those are the things that makes up a design system. And if you see by definition here, it says that it's a collection of usable components, guidelines, and standards that ensure consistency, right? So the goal of integrating design system is now to help the team stay consistent, not just consistent in design, but consistency in all the things that makes up a design system. We are going to see it in a minute, right? So when we talk about consistency, efficiency, and all those grammar, it's not just about the design, right? It's about the entire experience, both consistency in engineering, consistency in products, consistency in every other areas, right? So that is what we are referring to when we say consistency. So, and the other thing that it enables for a team is it brings in scalability, both in the designing process and in the development process. So, and of course, it will include all the elements you will see in a style guide and in a UI kit, like buttons, typography, colors, and layouts. But it also includes the guidelines, the rules, the standard, and where it can be used. So those are the things that makes up a design system. And then when we look at all of these properties, you assume that all design systems are built the same. All design systems are not built the same, and they have their level of scalability, their level of consistency. So the reason why you are seeing a lot of people talk about Shascien is because of the way it is designed. So Shascien by design is created to be very consistent and scalable, and that is why developers love it. That's why designers love it. So if you're a designer or an engineer or a product person or just someone who is generally interested in tech related stuffs, thinking about getting into product, any other role, it's important you begin to learn about design system, and most especially explore how Shasien can become part of your flow, right? So Shasien by default is a UI library. So it's built with Tailwind CSS, which I will explain to you what it means, and it's designed for fast prototyping. So you see that these days you see a lot of people creating products, and they say that they built it in few weeks, in few months. And when you look at the experience of the product is very consistent, very efficient. And you wonder, how were they able to create this level of detailed design and products in a very short time? That's because they are using a design system that is efficient, right? And it's customizable. So when we look at Shascien is made of different core components, and there are things that makes it stand out from a lot of design systems. There are a lot of design systems out there. You must have heard of MUI, you must have heard of material design system, you must have heard of um, uh, Chakra, and there are so many design systems out there that has their uniqueness. But one of the reasons why I love Shascien is that by default it is accessible. So when we say accessible, it's not because you can easily go to the website and use it. It means that it is accessible to every kind of user group. So people who are disabled, people who have you know mobility issues, keyboard users, every sort of accessibility need you will require in a website, whether because you love accessibility or because you need to meet legal requirements. So let's say you're working for a startup in Europe, and you know that in Europe your company must meet the GDPR requirements, and you also know that the GDPR requirements also wants your products to meet the web accessibility standard. So if you are trying to look for a design system that you are going to use in your product, you have to consider, is this design system accessible for all type of users, right? So if the user comes to my website, can then navigate this entire website using their keyboard. So those are the things that you have to think about when you're trying to choose a design system. And of course, for a design system that is scalable, you want to have control over the design, the function. And Shascien, by design, the way it's created is that it allows you to have 100% customization control over it. Some design systems allows you to add a few properties to the component, but Shascien gives you the ability to customize every details the way you want. And that is why you could go to a product that uses Shascien and you wouldn't know that is a Shascien product, because they have customized it to their own taste. So if you're an engineer that loves to customize stuff, if you're a designer like me who wants to have 100% control over the UI, Shascien is for you because it gives you the capacity to do whatever you want to do. And That is one beauty of it. And because of that customizability, it also means that it can be scalable. So you can assemble one, two, three components to create, you know, more layouts and modular components for any use case. It doesn't limit you to a particular use case. So if you're creating a card component, you can dismantle the entire card component and add elements inside of it without, worrying about if developers are going to be unhappy because of what you just did. Because the chassis end card component enables the developer to add anything they want to add inside of it, and the component will still work as it's supposed to work, right? So that is one of the reasons that chassis end is unique. And of course, chassis end didn't just happen, right? Is a combination of a lot of tools out there. And one of the tools that chassis end is using is Redis UI. Redis UI is also a component library, but it's called primitive components because they don't have styling. So if you open a Redis UI button, there's no style on it, but it is 100% accessible. So that is what SASIN builds on. And SASIN uses what is called Tailwind CSS, which is a CSS style to style the component. And developers already are familiar with using Tailwind CSS. So it's more efficient than writing the regular CSS styles that we write when you're creating a HTML and CSS website, right? And of course, for tables, if you're a designer who is creating a dashboard or a analytics dashboard that require tables, Shasian has also tables components and data grid that is built on top of what is called Tanstack table, right? And also, Shasian comes with a fully open source icon library, which you can download to your system. Your developers can download to their code base and use it however way they want it. Now, the other key benefits that Shasian will give us if you're using it for your design is this: because it uses Tailwind CSS, it also means that you can add any style you want. So if you want your button to be gradient with animations, with whatever you want it, you can do it. If you want your button to be fully rounded, with all these fancy borders that we see most times in AI products, you can do it on Chassis because it gives you 100% customization, right? Now, because of that customization that it gives you, it also enables you to create more consistent design across all your products UI, excuse me. Now, and also, one of the key things that engineers are concerned is that for a design system, let's say for example, if you're using MUI, material UI design system, you will have to download all the entire code into your project, right? But for ChatCN is modular by design, and what that means is that if you want to use only a button, you just need to install or download only the button component. So if in your project what you need is an input field, you just need to download only the input field. You don't need every other stuff that they have there, right? And that is the beauty of it, because you the engineer will now be able to control what is in their project. They will not have their file so large that it will slow down the application. So, when you're trying to, you know, negotiate or recommend using Shasien, this is one of the key things that is important to mention. And the last thing that is good about Shasien is that you don't just have access to the components, you also have access to the code of the component. So when you download Shasien into your code base, you are actually downloading the entire code of that button, of that component. So which means that you have full control and customization inside of it. All right. So what I want to do next is to quickly walk us through uh, some examples. And I know that maybe most of us may be designers, or if you're a designer here, you may want me to show you some stuff on Figma first, but that is not what I want to do. What I want to do first is to show you some stuff in code, right? So I'm not your typical software engineer. So bear with me with the way I explain it. And what I will try to do is to explain it in the way that a regular guy who is not a software engineer will understand what I'm trying to talk about, right? And the examples I'll be using here is not really the best out there. So you can't copy what I'm doing to into your code base, because this is just illustrations to show you how Shasien works, right? So I have these basic projects which I created using Shasien guidelines. So if you want to get started with Shasien, the best place to go is whether you're a designer or you're an engineer, or whatever role you are currently responsible for. The best place to start from is on the website of Shasien, because they will give you the real documentation. Remember I said something about guidelines, because when you're building for design systems, you need to be sure of the guidelines. You need to be sure that the design system has good documentation that will help you to know more about that design system. So we have chassis and UI. And once you get there, because it's an open source tool, you have access to all the components right on the website. I remember I told you that chassis also uses Redux UI. So if you go to Redux UI, you also see all the primitive components I told you about right on their website. So you see that you have all of these primitive components. And the good thing about this is that you now have access to two detailed documentation that is talking about the same thing. So if for example you're on chassis and you're looking at the button component, if there are information here that you don't see on this page, you can go to the other websites and look at the button components to see more information. So the way I use the two websites is this. I use ChatCN website to see the code example. So you see a button examples here. Also you see how to install it into your projects, and then if I want to know more about the properties of that component, I will go to the other website. So I will come to this side here, and I will go to themes. I will go to get started, and then I will look for the button component so that I can see what are the properties that are available. So as you can see here, I have all the properties that is available for a button, right? Now, all of these properties will work by default on a Shasien component button, because Shasien built their button using this design system, right? So this is the same thing for every other component. So if you're working on a card component and you need to see some details that she's not here, you can just go to the other side of the equation and look at the card component and see what are the properties that are available for that card component. Now, if you're a designer, this might sound very strange to you, right? But then if we are actually building out these components in Figma, these are all the properties we need to know about, right? Because we need to know that, okay, the card components have different sizes. We need to know that the button component has different sizes. We need to know that the card component has different variation. So it has three types of variation, right? Those are the details that we need to know if we are actually going to translate all of this design into Figma. Because by default, Shasien doesn't have an official Figma UI kit. The UI kit that is available here is something that someone created, which I will show us also in a few minutes. So, but if you want to get a full scope of all the components and how they function, the best way to do that is to look at to look at the properties that is available on Shasien, and also look at the properties that is available Radix UI. So what I would do is that at the end of uh, this call, I will send all of this link to you so that you can easily access them whenever you want. Right now, if you look at my left here, let me maximize this. So the code you see on this section here is currently running on my browser, and this is what it looks like. So it's a very simple application, right? Let me turn it into white mode so that you can see it very well. Okay, so it's a very simple application, and what I'm just trying to show you is some of the components that is available on ChatCN so that you can have a picture of how they look like. Right. So on ChatCN, one of the core foundation for a ChatCN. Are you sure about that? Can any other person see my screen? Can anyone else see my screen, please? Okay. Can you see the ChatCN Masterclass? Right. Okay. Can you try to maybe rejoin and see if you can see my screen? Um, his name, Raphael. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So one of the core thing that ChatCN enables is that it allows you to define the color theme. So whenever we are creating a new design system on Figma, the first thing we want to do is to do what? To define the colors. So if you look at my Figma screen here, you see I have already created this uh, Figma local variables here that has all the Chartesian colors, right? And the other thing again I love about Chartesian is that the colors are very, very few. They don't have 200 colors. They don't have 1,000 colors, right? That you have to juggle over when you're creating your design. So they just have very few colors, and the system is very simple. So they just have a background color, a foreground color, a card background color, and just very few other things. They have only one border color, right? So they don't need 200 borders, right? They have they have just one primary color, and that is it. They don't have secondary color, tertiary color like we see on some other design system. They just have only one secondary color, right? So, and at the end of the day, you will still see that the product you create is still very, very, very sleek and very usable, right? So this design system has taught me that you don't really need to create 2,000 color variants when you're creating a design system for for it to become very, very good. You don't need that, right? You can have something that is so basic, and at the end of the day, you will still be able to create very good designs, right? Without all those details. Now, so that is one thing that Atlassian gives you. And if you look at this website, the first thing you will see is the themes. So the themes in Sharcien has two way of creating color styles, and the theme is the easiest approach that I have seen so far, and that is what I use. So in your code, you will define a theme color that is very similar to what you saw on Figma. So if you look at my code here on the CSS, so you see that here, let me just zoom it in. So you see that here you have all the same exact thing you saw on Figma, the background color, the foreground color, and so on and so forth. And if you notice, there are two options. We have the dark mode and we have what is called the root. So the root is like the default color mode, which is like the light mode, right? So so long as you use only these colors in your design, or in your code, you can easily switch between light and dark mode. So as you can see now, everything here is in light mode. Everything. So if I go to the other pages, like in this input page, you see that everything is in light mode. If I go to the buttons page, everything is in light mode, right? But see what happens here. If I come to the the code here and I add just dark in the system here, the entire layout is going to change to dark mode. Everything is going to change to dark mode. So if I refresh this page now, you see everything is now dark mode. Both the colors, the styles, the border, the background, everything updates. If you go to any of the pages, everything is already updated. And that is exactly the same thing you do on Figma, right? So on Figma, you define two modes. So here we have the root mode and you have the dark mode, right? So, and if you look at this card I created here, this login screen here, you see that we have two. We have the the dark mode and we have the light mode. And really what I did was just use the same colors that I've defined in the local variables. And what I just have to do is switch between the light mode and the root, right? This is the light mode, which is called root in ChatCN. And then I can switch to that. So if you're collaborating with an engineer to create something, maybe you're a designer and you're collaborating with an engineer to create something, no, you can decide to use the Chassis CSS team to create your designs. And all you have to do is to decide, okay, what is our primary color, which is this one? What is our background color? What is our the foreground color? So when we say foreground, we are referring to mostly this text color, right? What is on top of the background. So as you can see, I mean, this design is very okay. I don't know for you, but it serves its purpose, right? It's a login screen or is a create account screen, and it serves its purpose. It resembles most of the things we see in most of these applications we use every day, right? So that is one thing about Chassis. It gives you a very easy way to customize your styles by giving you a a simple template that you can define your colors. And once you update your colors, it automatically updates everywhere on the website. So that is number one. And the other thing that I told you initially is that you can easily customize your buttons, your components. So if you look at this screen here, okay, let me switch to the light mode because it also makes it very easy to see. So if you look at this screen here, we have three buttons, and these three buttons is using the same Chat CM button, right? However, there is this third one here that has a gradient, and also it has this animation on it where you have this gradient animation going on. I'm not sure if you can see it, right, because it's very small. But the what happened here is that I'm still using the same chassis button like you see on the top here, and I'm also still using it here. But because it gives me the capacity to customize it however I want, the engineer can go to their code base and create a custom button that is that can inherit all the properties of the chassis button. And the good thing about this is that if you're creating your own design system in your startup or in your company, you can easily build all your custom design system using the chassis components without making any breaking changes. So in the future, if chassis has any updates on the button, if I update the chassis button, this custom button will still be valid because I'm still referencing the chassis button. And the good thing about that also is that all the properties that is available on the chassis button is also available on this custom button. So remember I told you that chassis is fully accessible. So if I use my keyboard to navigate this button, I can easily go through the three of them. So I'm not sure if you can see it, but I can easily navigate through all of the three buttons. Now, the other thing I want to also show you is that it's very easy to install the CN components into your system. Now, I mentioned that if you want to use a button, you can only install the button. You don't have to install everything into your code, right? And the same thing works for every component. So let's say we want to have a button here that triggers a dialog, right? All we need to do is to install the dialog component. And to do that, I'll just go to the SharCN website and I will look for the dialog. So when I look for the dialog, each component on SharCN, they will give you a command that you can copy and paste into your your code editor. For the engineers in the house, they understand that better, right? So if you're not familiar with using installing something on the code editor, is something that you should actually go, research more on, learn about how to use the terminal in your computer, whether you're using Windows or Mac, is the same thing, right? So if I come to my this code base that I'm working on right now, I will just copy this command and I will go to the code base here and I will paste it in my terminal and install. So I've already installed this dialog button. And to see the beauty of SharCN, I've already copied the code that for this example here. And if you click on this button, you see a dialog. So let me make it light mode so you can see. So if I click on this button, you will see a dialog. Now, this dialog has all these custom, it has two input, it has a button, all of these things. And the beauty of SharCN is that you can decide whatever you want to have inside the dialog. It's not limited to any type of component. So SharCN just give you a template that you can put anything you want inside of it, right? So that is amazing. Now, if we look at the initial code I have here on this screen, I want to have a dialog here. I've already added it to my code, so it will be easy for me to show you. So if I go to the button page, I have this dialog section here. So if I just activate it for you to see, now if you come to this screen here, we should see a dialog. So let me refresh. You see a button here that once you once you click on it, it will bring up the dialog components. Okay, let me see why it's not loading. Sorry, this is a live demo, so things can always go one way or the other. Okay, here we are. So now we have this new button that says edit profile. If I click on edit profile, it brings up this dialog, right? So to show you the beauty of SharCN, let me do something here. The beauty of SharCN allows you to decide whatever you want to be in the dialog without really making much effort. Now imagine if you're a developer, if you want to build this dialog, you have to do all the hard work of trying to create this overlay, trying to create all the functions that you see here, try to create all the try to create the close button, right? Everything. And this dialog is fully accessible to keyboard. So right now, if I use my keyboard to navigate to the button and I tap my space bar, the dialog comes up. If I hit my escape button, the dialog closes. Right. So I don't need my mouse to navigate it. And that's why I told you that the SharCN component library is 100% accessible. So if you're negotiating why you should use SharCN in your product, this is one of the things that you need to stress on, because a lot of businesses and companies are required by law to make their product accessible. And of course, beside the legal requirements, is a good practice to consider every kind of users when you're creating your product. Right now, if we escape this, if you go into the code base, I know it's very small to see in the screen there, but I'll try to see how I can. Let me see if I can zoom in. No, I cannot. Okay. Um. Okay. Hold on. Okay. So if you look at the dialogue, you see that for the dialogue we have all of this stuff going on here. So we have the chassis end dialog is very similar to the CAD component. So if you look at the CAD component here, it looks very, very similar. So for the dialog, we have what is called the dialog trigger, which is what triggers the opening and closing, right? So the functionality has already been written there. You don't have to write any function to create a trigger, at least on the basic surface level, right? So now what you just have to do, you have to just add a button inside of it. So if you look at this section here, what we have here is a button, a regular chassis button component, right? Now, after the trigger, we now have the dialog content. So inside the dialog content, we have two sections. So we have the dialog header, and we also have the dialog the dialog description. So inside this, you can decide to add whatever you want to add. So we can decide to add more input field, and what we just have to do is to create more input field, right? If we decide to add more buttons, all we have to do is to add more buttons. So if you look at the code itself, you will notice that the dialogue is divided into three sections. So we have the header, we have the content area, and we have the footer, right? So the footer is usually where you have the buttons. So let's say that we want to have two buttons here. All we have to do is duplicate this button, and now we have two buttons. So let's say this is called cancel. Now here we have two buttons, and of course, if you're a designer in the house, you will now say, oh, but we don't need to have the button don't need to be the same, right? So all you have to do is to change the type. So if you look at Figma, here, the components I have here on Figma, if you look at the components here, we have the button component, and on the button component we have different types, right? So here um, we have the instructions, we have the secondary, we have this ghost, we have the primary buttons, and all of these. Now, the way we can control all of these buttons here, we can also control it on our code. So if you want to make this other button here, the cancel button, to be a destruction button, all we have to do is to change the type, right? So we can come back to our code base here and change the type to destructive. So how do we do that? We can define the variants. So on Figma we create variants. So when you create a component, you create a variant, right? So we can do the same thing on chassis. So we can say that, okay, for this chassis button we want to use the destructive. So let's see if we can do that. So let's say that a variant is destructive. Now, if we did that correctly, it will automatically inherit everything that we have everything that the destructive button has. So you don't have to define the color of the button and anything. Everything has already been created for you because it's a component, right? So once you come back here, you see that the button has changed to destructive. So it has not only changed the function, it has also changed the color and everything. So it looks very much different from the other one, right? And that is the beauty of using a component library, because you can easily customize it however way you want. All right. Now that is mostly how most of the components works. So if you come back to the input field, what we have here is just a CAD component that is holding two input field, two labels, and a button, right? And the second one here, we have a CAD component that is holding an input field and a button. Now, all of these things has been styled for you. So once you create a card component, you already have the border radius, you already have the borders, you already have the colors defined, and you just have to change it however way you want in your code or in your design. So it works exactly the same way on the code level and also on the design level. And the beauty of this is that when you're speaking with your engineer, your engineer and the designer is speaking the same language, right? So that is the beauty of it. Okay, I've been talking for a long time, so if we could dive into any question and answer. I saw someone's hands is up. Is it? Okay, no. So, yeah, anybody have any question? Yes, please. Yes, please. Samuel, go ahead. If you're speaking, we can't hear you. I guess your mic has some challenge. Okay, we still have a few persons here. I have David and see, Obina. So if you have questions, please do ask. Love to answer them. No, no, I can't hear you. I can't hear you, unfortunately. Amazing, amazing. Yeah, I'm here for you, sir. So David, are you an engineer or are you a designer or you're curious? Okay. Yeah, funny enough, I'm also taking a project management program, and most of the conversation I've been looking at is related to managing projects within the digital ecosystem. So imagine if you have been assigned to lead a project to build a new product or to manage a new product. I mean, it's a beautiful thing to be able to speak the same language as all those technical guys. Yeah, yeah, somewhere, please. You're muted. Oh, you are too. No, they can use Shasien. They can use Shasien, right? So let me okay, let me show you when it comes to you can still see my screen, right? Okay, so if you look at the theming, Shasien gives you two options. you can use CSS variable or Tailwind CSS. So what I showed you, what I showed earlier with this, the local variables you saw here, and we have these defined styles. These are actually CSS variables, and that is why if you look at the code, if you look at the code base, you will see that the style is defined in a file that is called global.css, right? So, and then we just have these two two definition, one for the roots and one for the dark mode, right? So that you can switch between two colors. And it's not even a must you want if you want to use two colors. Maybe your product prefer to just have only dark mode. You can just use only dark mode, right? But it's a good practice to define both of them. And once you have already defined the root mode, it's easy to define the dark mode because it's mostly the reverse of the other, right? So Shasian gives you these two options. And what happens is that they when you use CSS variable in your when there is what is called uh what is the name? It's called um tailwind.config. Yes. Then on the global CSS also, if I go to the bottom, okay, here, now you see that I can actually define new styles here. So let's say that I have okay, let's say I define a new style here. Let me call it what should I call it? So I'm trying to get the CSS stuff you talked about. So it's not really CSS specific, Tailwind specific here. So let's say we want to have a style that is called um a card background, card BG. This is not a Tailwind CSS class, right? It's a regular CSS class that you define when you're writing CSS. So let's see if it's going to work, right? So we can come here and say that okay, let's say apply. Let's say we want to define um, background color. Okay, let's see what's it called. Let me see. All right. So once you define it, you can now go to the code base where you want to apply it, and what you want to apply is this class. So you apply this class to that particular element you want to have this background. So that is how you can use it. So if you look at this on the top here, we have this one called utilities here that has test balance wrap. So if I come here now and say okay, I've changed my mind. I want all my H1 to have very huge font size. So I can say okay, H1, I want you to have a font size of let's say 12 rem. And of course, nobody defines font size as 12 rem because this is a very huge font size, right? And so if I go to anywhere, let's say if I go to my UI here, I have okay. So this is giving me an error. So let me go back to this previous one here and remove it. I'll just use a H1 as example. Okay. Then I'll go back to the home page, and in the home page I have this there's this okay chats.com. The home page I have a heading, right, that is called Shazam Masterclass. So I've changed that to use that class we just created. Or I could actually call it something else instead of using H1. Let me call it uh, dot new new H1 dot new H1. Let me see if that is going to work. So if I go to my code, the home page, I have that H1. So I have this H1 here, right? So let me see if it will work. I will just write the name of that class I created right now, which is new H1, right? So let's see if it's going to work. Is it new H1? Yes, new H1. So let me refresh. No, my system is a bit slow. New H1. And here we have new H1. Okay. Okay. Did you see that? So that is just an example anyway. So now what that means is that you could actually define your entire CSS class here. So I have another project on my system here that I can show you. So this is a different project, and I think it has these uh, custom classes on the top here. So if you look at instead of using this, you see I have a custom H2 and a custom H3, and actually I actually used Tailwind CSS classes here, but instead of if I want to use the regular classes, I can also use it, right? Because so long as I'm defining it on the utility layer, it will apply. So, and that is why you saw that when I changed the classes to if I change when I change the classes to 12 frame, if I also add, let's say I add a color and I say green, it will also change the anywhere I use new H1 on my code, it will change the text color to green, right? Because it's a CSS style. And that is the beauty of it, because Shasian allows you to use CSS variable. So if your team is using regular CSS styling and not Tailwind, you can definitely use it as well, right? But I mean, it's the way I approach my development at the moment is that I'm not a pro with Tailwind. So what I just do, if I need these two stuff to be aligned opposite each other, I'll just go to Tailwind website and search it, right? And I will see what class is used to create that. Or better still, I will ask I'll ask ChatGPT, or I will use my Copilot here. I have a Copilot on my code editor. I'll just ask it, please, how do I change this particular style using Tailwind, right? And it will just give me the particular Tailwind class that I need to apply to make those changes. So at the moment, you see these cards here. So let me delete this. No longer need it. Let me delete. So that if you go to the other part of my code here where I have these cards, you will see that what I actually applied, I use the Tailwind grid, right? That is why you can see that the four cards are in a grid layout, right? So if I want them to now to be on one line, I will just go to Tailwind website and search for other CSS properties. But of course, you need to know the CSS property you want to apply. For if you don't know the CSS property, you cannot ask uh, ChatGPT or any other AI tool you're using what what CSS property do I need to do this, do that, right? And if it tells you, you cannot ask it, okay, how do I apply this CSS property using Tailwind? And it will not tell you what Tailwind class to use, right? And that way, once you apply it, you you are good to go, right? So that is the beauty of it. So once you have defined all of these stuffs here, you know, you don't need to use any other Tailwind class at all. You don't need to. You can decide to define all your stuff yourself. So maybe somehow you want to have uh, your own corner radius, right? So you can say, okay, let me define custom radius, right? And the custom radius will be, let's say you want the the border radius to be, you know 10 pixels, right? So if you create any UI and you apply this class on it, that UI is going to have a border radius of 10 pixels, right? So every CSS properties can actually be used here. And if you notice on the button page here, I have this custom button with the gradients animations, and it's possible because here I defined a custom animation here that is called shine, right? You can see that it just animates from 0% to 100%, right? Then also I have animate shine, and I have the animation here, and I is using infinite, which means that it should continue to animate itself over and over again. And the concept is very simple. If you go to the custom button here, you see that on the custom button we have those properties applied to it, right? So let's see where it is. So you see here we have animate shine here, right? So and that is because we created a custom CSS that is called animate shine, and that's why it's working on the button, right? So you can define any kind of custom CSS that you want using this. However, if you want to still use Tailwind, you can, because the theming also supports Tailwind CSS, which means that if you decide that somehow you want a particular button to have a different color. Let's say you want this default button to have a green color. You can actually use Tailwind CSS to do that. So if you just come to the page where that button is, what you need to do is to look for the button, right? So that was the very first button we have on the page. And what you need to do for Tailwind CSS, of course, you have to define the class name. So if you write class name, and then what you need to do, you define bg green, whatever value the green color is. Now this is a Tailwind CSS uh, style, right? I'm not sure if you can see what this, because on the screen here it looks very tiny, right? So we define this bg green here, and what it will do is that it's going to apply that green color, because that green color is already available on Tailwind CSS. So if the color is a valid color, it's going to apply it, right? But if it's not a valid color, what you just need to do is to go to Tailwind website and look at all the color properties that you have there, and you then copy that code and apply it here. So somehow is the color is not correct. So I just need to find the right color, right? So if I use red, maybe red is there. It's not. Okay. So let's see Tailwind CSS. Not Tailwind UI, Tailwind CSS. Is it? Tailwind CSS. Yes. So what I usually do, I'll just come to this place and I'll search for color. And I'll search for background color. Yes. So I can now see all the colors that is available on Tailwind. So if I copy any of this color, it will definitely work on that component, right? So let's see if it's going to work. So if I go back here and I change this to that color I copied, it should work, hopefully. If it doesn't, maybe there's something wrong somewhere. Yes, it should work. But I don't know if I've answered your question anyway. All right. Any other question?